Okay, now there's okay, we are right on time. Hello everyone. Welcome to the TESOL webinar series. I am Madhu Kesi, your host for today. It's great to have you join us from different parts of the world. Today's title for the webinar is Mentoring Graduate Writers in the Dissertation and Publication Process. As you know, the goal of this webinar is to offer various kinds of webinars and workshops for TESOL members and beyond as part of professional development opportunities. So our presenters today are Dr. Ali Elali and Dr. Sarah Albrecht. So let me introduce them briefly here. So Ali Elali is an assistant professor in the Teaching, Learning and Educational Leadership Department at Eastern Kentucky University. He's a former middle school ESL teacher and one of the past presidents of Arizona TESOL Renaissance. His research activity focuses on adolescent multilingual learners, writing in content areas, corpus-based language pedagogy, disciplinary literacy, pre-service teachers, transformative learning, and mentoring doctoral writing. His publications appeared in literacy and language journals. A former recipient of the TESOL Leadership Mentoring Award, he is currently serving as the managing editor of TESOL Second Language Writing Interest Section News. So I'm also part of that committee, and then we work together in that committee. So Sarah, we have another speaker here. Sarah Albrecht is an assistant professor of bilingual education at the University of Houston, downtown. Her research interests include biliteracy, pedagogical translation, and bilingual teacher preparation, with publications appearing in transdisciplinary journals. A former high school Spanish teacher, she earned her Master's of Arts in Spanish from New Mexico State University and Master of Education and PhD in Language, Reading, and Culture from the University of Arizona. So let me talk a little bit about the format structure of the webinar. Our guest speakers will speak for about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll have time for questions. So please use the chat when you want to submit your questions, but you also have an option to unmute yourself and then speak your question. I mean, share your question. So I'm also going to tell you about the thing that we are going to record this event and will be available on the TESOL YouTube channel later. So if you don't get it, I mean, we'll also share the link for that recorded event. So now let's welcome Dr. Ali Elali and Dr. Sarah Albrecht. The rest of the time is yours. Over to you, guest speakers.
Thank you so much, Madhu. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I can see folks from different parts of the world, actually, from South America, Sonora, Flagstaff, where I graduated from a long time ago. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. I can see some familiar faces as well who are my colleagues, and it's great to see everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm just going to jump in really quick and say hello, but Ali is going to get us started off here, and then I will be picking up with our presentation here in a little bit.
All right, so I would like to make sure everyone can see the screen. The sharing is fine, and you can hear us well. Can you give us a thumbs up or something? Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's good to see you here. So today we will be talking about mentoring graduate writing in the dissertation and publication processes. And in the chat, we are going to share this presentation so you can download it. And also we'll be sharing MNT link to you later. So let me just go over the agenda here. So we are going to, first of all, start with an introduction to mentoring in graduate school. And then we are going to go a little deeper into the discussion by talking about doctoral writing and academic positions, or finding academic positions. And then we'll switch to student and faculty perspectives, how how students and faculty see mentoring, especially in the context of writing, based on the current literature or research. And then finally, we will share with you an example of writing support and collaborative writing or publication from our own experiences. And you'll be able to ask your questions at the end. Feel free to write them in the chat or later. So we look forward to that as well, having further discussion later. So as I said, I would like to share with you a Menti link. So here's a link, and you should be able to see a code as well. If you don't mind clicking on that, or if you go to menti.com, entering that code, you should be able to see our poll here, because we'd like to see who is participating in their roles or identities. And in the meantime, I would like to just switch screens here. To look at who is with us tonight or this morning. So we can see graduate students in ABD status, all about dissertation. That's fantastic. We have one graduate student still taking courses, one faculty member. Fantastic. We really hope to see a variety here. So if that's all, I'm going to switch to the next question. All right. So here's the question. So what comes to your mind when someone says mentoring related to graduate writing? So go ahead and write a few words or phrases so we can read them off of this page. So go ahead and take a minute here. Or if you're having any trouble, please let us know. Constructive feedback. That's great. Yes. Resources. Yes, providing resources, being a resource, right? Support for writing. Fantastic. Individualized on both sides. Yes. Individualized, personal. Yes. And collaborative writing. Yes, that's a great way of mentoring graduate students, graduate writers. Fantastic. And writing of the dissertation as well. Absolutely. Yes, writing involved dissertation and other types of writing. Great. So any other thoughts? These are great responses. Fantastic. So I am going to, yes, continuous feedback. That's great. We'll talk about feedback as well. Great. So let me switch to our slides here to continue. All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about mentoring first, as I told you. So mentoring is not a new term or concept. It's been here for decades, right? So in different mentoring guides for graduate schools or for graduate programs, mentoring is used as an umbrella term referring to the variety of ways that advisors, peers, and other individuals can support graduate students. Mentors can support them in different ways, and you mentioned some of those. But some of the important thoughts that come up in different guides for faculty and students are, for example, demystifying graduate school, and of course, writing along with that. Engaging graduate students in ongoing conversations, right? This is critically important, and these conversations might be related to writing as well. providing constructive support and feedback, and also looking out for graduate students' interests. This is critically important. We'll come back to this point later in our slides. Understanding students' interests early on, and also direct career assistance at the end of the PhD. So these are some of the points, not a comprehensive list, but also the Council of Graduate Schools differentiates between supervisors being a supervisor versus being a mentor by focusing on support in a personal and professional way for students' growth, instead of only focusing on knowledge or skill development, which supervisors do. So why is mentoring important in graduate school? Starting graduate school is a life-changing decision. I'm sure everyone here agrees with that. Especially a doctoral education is a long-term investment in one's education and career choices. And starting grad school provides deeper learning opportunities and exploring a lot of resources, learning resources, and also teaching opportunities. And such experiences can be very enjoyable. I'm sure we can talk about that. But I personally, for example, felt a strong desire for learning, especially when I was in the ABD status, and also for writing, as I was doing my own research and using my skills actively. However, grad school can also be very challenging, quite challenging. The challenges can be associated with the increased workload, such as coursework, writing demands, or fitting in a new academic community whose practices could be sometimes idiosyncratic, like not very usual, not similar to our daily routines. And also supervision needs, supervising roles, or the milestones. So all of these add to that. And also the imposter syndrome, right? Feeling insufficient sometimes, although you achieve a big goal by starting grad school. So in this context, we might seek out advice, mentoring from one or multiple people related to these aspects of the grad school. So talking about these topics related to graduate education is also a big need. So I usually say doctoral education and writing needs to be and is a social activity, something that needs to be completed, that can't be completed by yourself only. So you need a circle of friends, colleagues, and other people who can mentor you. So our focus is going to be on the mentorship aspect, especially in the writing context.
So we're going to move on to the next component of our agenda items, which is doctoral writing and academic positions. And so for this next slide, we made this slide to demonstrate how mentoring can affect the developmental trajectory of doctoral writing skills needed for academic positions. And again, like Ali was saying, we're looking at mentors that might be a faculty mentor. We're looking at mentors also as potentially being peer mentors, colleagues that we are around and working with. So areas where mentoring might come into play include the items on this list here. So that might be mentoring on dissertation milestones, programmatic milestones, like if you have a written qualifying exam or a written comprehensive exam, items such as research design as you're getting going on your dissertation, and then the mentoring on the dissertation itself. And other areas where mentoring might come into play include writing interests. So explorations of how theory applies, writing theoretical pieces, writing practice-based pieces, mentoring on various research methods, qualitative, quantitative, and then the varying approaches within those areas. Mentoring as far as putting something together solo, how to write collaboratively. So then that is a whole other area where we might be looking at mentoring. And then at the publication. So awareness of publication options and what are the disciplinary expectations? How are conference presentations aligned with academic writing that we do. So just kind of getting started off as far as some of the various areas where we might think about the potential for either faculty mentoring and or peer mentoring for doctoral writing. So this slide illustrates the potential cause and effect sequence. I say cause and effect because it's set up that way, but really we can also think of this as iterative or as all of these happening simultaneously, some of them happening simultaneously. So we can kind of look a little bit beyond the actual structure of the slide here to how these various components might be functioning together. But we're looking at doctoral education and preparing for academic positions and how having a mentor can come into play in these various components. So we already talked about the development of writing skills in and of themselves. So that might include academic skills, academic writing skills, gaining the skills you need to structure an empirical article, what information goes in what part, how do you write a literature review, how are the results different from the discussion, how do you cycle back to your literature review. All of those kinds of things are areas where you can use mentorship to be able to structure your work appropriately within the area that you're working. So research skills, for example, when and how to get IRB. How do you find a research site? How do you work within a theoretical framework? How do you collect data? How do you collect enough data? How do you make sure you've got enough so that it's going to be useful for your work? So those are all areas also where mentoring can come into play. And of course, we think of faculty mentoring, but it can also be really useful to talk with other people who have done it or who have maybe gone just a little bit before, might be involved in the process and understanding a little bit about what's worked well for people and where some stumbling blocks came up that you might be able to benefit from and try and develop some workarounds. Finding publication opportunities, what might be some journals in the field, how do you find out their ranking, their impact factor? How do you communicate reach out to editorial boards? When should you do that? So there are many other factors as far as finding those publication opportunities once you've got some research that you're ready to submit, or other types of writing that you might have done. Publishing papers and projects. So what do you expect in the publication process? How and again, how do you communicate with editorial boards? And then there was another thing that I was going to say before, which is as far as finding publication opportunities, what might be some professional organizations that align with the work that you're doing, that you can be getting notifications from, like AERA, if you're part of certain special interest groups that are sending notifications, or what might be some social media groups on Facebook or LinkedIn, where you can be seeing calls for publication and or for submissions and things like that. And then there's understanding the hiring process and working in academia, the varying expectations that different types of institutions might have as far as your publication. So are they going to be expecting peer-reviewed articles, that you have peer-reviewed articles published before you get hired? Some do and some don't. And are they expecting to see that you've been functioning on research teams? Some do and some don't. And so those are some areas too where mentoring can be really valuable as far as how you navigate that area. So really quick, some more issues related to mentoring to doctoral writing, or things to kind of keep in mind. As far as, so the first one, understanding strengths and weaknesses in writing, that's going to be, if there's a faculty mentor, then the faculty mentor can be aware of the doctoral student's strengths and weaknesses, but then the student also can be aware of strengths and weaknesses and target areas to proactively seek mentoring. Engagement, then we've got kind of a few areas that have come up in the research too, which, for example, engagement during courses is insufficient for mentoring. That might be a good start, but then you also need to be engaged in mentoring relationships outside of class. We've talked about providing and asking for specific feedback on writing. That might be papers, grant proposals, conference proposals, many of those areas where you might be engaged in writing. And academic writing support varies across programs substantially. And so that's important to keep in mind as far as some of these areas we've talked about where you might need mentoring. If you're not finding it, then those are areas where you might need to be proactively looking for the mentoring that you need. And then just a couple of others here that to keep in mind is that graduate writers need guidance on self-regulation strategies, and that graduate writers benefit from consistent faculty communication. So again, some other factors to keep in mind as far as setting up and working within functioning good mentoring relationships that are working well.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So I am going to transition into student and faculty perspectives with regard to mentoring in writing in graduate school. So here is another poll. If you don't mind, please going into your Menti again and answering this question. What are some examples of mentoring or mentoring practices that you have experienced or as a faculty member you provided for academic writing? So let me also switch to our other page, and you should be able to see it now. Okay, so I'm not sure. I think we had some new participants. Maybe we should share the code. Thank you, Sarah, for doing that. That's great. Just to make sure. So what are some examples? Individual sessions with my advisor. That's great. Having some sessions in place, feedback on qualifying papers. That's fantastic. Yes, dissertation proposal process. That feedback on that. Great. Feedback from advisors and committee members. Absolutely, yes. If you are in the ABD phase and if you have already started writing your dissertation, I mean, you're based on your research, great. Brainstorming, absolutely. That's an important preparation an important self-regulation strategy to think about. Peer feedback with colleagues, that's fantastic. And principals, professors, district department chairs, that's great. Yes, working with them could be, you might have multiple mentors in different ways. Encouraging me to take breaks, yes, it's important. So taking care of yourself and also thinking about you as a human. Yes, correcting my writing thoroughly. Yeah, that's great. Modeling. Yes, sometimes, I mean, if you're having that, mentors or advisors can be great models in terms of how you correct your writing along the way, and check-ins. These are great examples. Thank you so much for sharing these. So let me switch to the presentation again. So here are some other perspectives that come up in the mentoring, especially writing-related mentoring in the research in the field. So feedback helps graduate students substantially in the early years of doctorate, while some other doctoral students may need consistent feedback at all levels of their graduate school or studies. So we want to keep in mind that. And also advanced planning and resilience especially are critically important in working with tight deadlines. In other words, graduate students establishing self-regulation in planning, writing, and consistently writing accomplish their writing goals more effectively. However, when written feedback on language and discourses is not explicit, doctoral writers or students may not be able to act upon the feedback very well. So these are just a few ideas that are reiterated in the field and in the research, but these are not, of course, comprehensive. On the faculty side, when we look at different research on faculty's perspective, so research on faculty members' mentoring experiences show challenges associated with scientific research communication and skills needed to guide doctoral students. Providing comprehensive and explicit feedback on writing while maintaining responsibility for students' scholarly development poses challenges. So that's important to keep in mind. This requires time, but also attention to the discourse and disciplinary language that you are writing in, helping students act upon the feedback and also integrating them into their paper successfully. All of that requires follow-up discussions and time on the faculty side. Working with writing experts who may not be disciplinary experts can still help doctoral writers build and clarify their thoughts and arguments. We also want to keep in mind that writing centers, for example, might have great professional editors and experienced, writing experts. Also, establishing communicating agreements is something that comes up, and it's suggested because of the social and emotional aspects of teaching and learning. I know from my own experiences that graduate students can be highly attached to their writing and look for signs for progress, especially positive feedback. So praise, opinions, and questions rather than criticisms are very helpful in that process. But sometimes advisors might find themselves providing repetitive feedback on recurring issues. So there could be different reasons, but students may occasionally disregard such feedback, fail to implement, or not be able to really act upon that. So we are sharing these two perspectives because it's important to operate effectively under the context of your own doctoral program successfully and take initiatives to meet your writing needs.
So for this next section, we wanted to share an example of writing support and collaborative publication from our own experience. And we're going to start with another poll first, which is, have you ever been part of any writing group led by a peer, colleague, or supervisor? And we'll go ahead and go back to the Mentimeter onto the next
Here you go.
poll here. And I'm going to put the link in one more time. So yes, we've been part of a writing group led by a peer colleague. One led by a writing group led by a supervisor. And we'll wait just a little bit longer to get a few more responses in here.
While we are waiting, Sarah, I just thought that sometimes there might be some folks who haven't been part of any writing group. So maybe if you can indicate that in the chat, it would be great, because we don't want to assume that you are, and we don't have a third option there, which we should have put. So I think there might be some who can write in the chat if they haven't been. So.
So in the meantime, our responses look like a larger number of participants have been part of a writing group led by a peer or colleague, and one person has been part of a writing group led by a supervisor. So we wanted to share with you an example of a peer support community, which was our own and continues to be our own peer support community. This was started by Ali, actually, during the COVID-19 pandemic, during the spring of 2021. It has met bi-monthly year-round, and we continue to meet bi-monthly year-round. We usually take July off. Our group focuses on writing, publishing, and academic positions. And this was kind of a fluke, how we started up and how our format, the way that we function developed basically was determined by the group, what worked for people, what people's needs were as far as how often we meet and what we do. So some of the things that we do is that we start off with an informal check-in on social emotional well-being. We do a life check, what's going on with everybody, whether that's in your own life or whether that's with what you're doing in academically. And because generally those, even though they seem siloed, they're really not. We talk about maybe what people are doing on their dissertation or what people are doing with other writing engagements, and that might include grant writing, that might include conference proposals, that might include participation in conferences. So we take time and chat about that, and it's also a great place to share resources. And resources might also include calls for papers, conference calls. They might include opportunities to peer review for a conference, peer review for a journal. All of those kinds of things are resources that we share within the group. So this diagram here is kind of another representation, a more visual representation of some of the things that we do within our own group. Collaborative writing, which is something that some of us have been working on right now. It's a nice non-competitive space to be able to do that, and we have we're going to be presenting some of our research that we've done within this our group. It can enhance writing productivity, and that because we're accountable for consistent attendance, and that affects our own productivity. It helps us to reflect on our writing needs. It helps us to ask for. We have a built-in space to ask for feedback, and that puts us in a position to also accept feedback. And then we already mentioned resource sharing for collective excellence to help all of us on our trajectory. And also it creates a space for a non-evaluative attitude where you can bring whatever you want to the table. You can ask whatever questions you want, bring up any issues that you want. And it's just a really great space for us to be able to address some of these things.
Thank you, Sarah. So I should say that this group has been absolutely very influential in my own personal development over the years. And Sarah has been there since the beginning, and I can see a couple more participants in the group who have been with us. That's great. Sanjukta and Amable. And this group is open to new members. So we want to just share that with you. And within this group, we also did a collaborative research study with some of the members, and that focused on mentoring doctoral writing because that became kind of our agenda, just finishing our doctoral degrees in less than 3 years now. And we found 3 themes related to faculty-student relationships and student initiatives and peer mentoring. So I am going to go a little more into detail about these 3 themes that we would like to share with you. These are kind of our perspectives, just continuing on that discussion. So primary program focus or doctoral milestones, this one is related to our communications with faculty throughout our doctoral experiences. And we noticed that sometimes the focus of such communications might be the doctoral steps or milestones. And there might be less focus on students' scholarly interests or writing interests, which might support potential publications or projects besides the dissertation. Also, early collaborative research and writing led to successful publications, as some of the members' experiences showed in different ways. And lack of mentorship, on the other hand, led to more struggle with the publications and writing processes, as well as sometimes publications came out much later in the doctoral education compared to some others who might have an earlier publication experience. So we would like to share a few more perspectives from our autoethnographic narratives and reflections here. So in our paper, this is from a paper that we have which has just been accepted. So student and faculty perceptions of roles and responsibilities are not necessarily aligned. In other words, how students and faculty are perceiving who they are when it comes to different aspects of doctoral education. So coursework, for example, should dovetail towards a dissertation or publication, help in that process. And faculty should provide feedback on writing, which is something we mentioned earlier, on final papers or projects or assignments to further them for maybe publication or other avenues. And faculty-student interests are not necessarily aligned sometimes in terms of the topics one is interested in or the career preparation. So this connects to an earlier point. So interests need to be discussed, and we say this needs to be done earlier in the doctoral years to understand each other better. Speaking about institutional practices, we also note that doctoral programs need alignment regarding roles, like when it comes to mentoring graduate students, writing, and publications across the board. A more experienced other in developing doctoral research and writing for publication is also a key. And also peer mentors can play an important role in this process. So Sarah will go through some other perspectives here.
Well, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over this whole slide, but I think the one thing that I would like to point out is that Ali was just addressing alignment in roles. And really what this slide is looking at here is where there can be some disconnects as far as what the faculty role is and what the student role is. And we found that when there is a disconnect as far as what the roles are, that can affect the doctoral writing trajectory. And so just pointing out, I'm not sure if we've mentioned, but we do have the link to these slides in the chat. So if there's anything you'd like to go back and look at or anything that we go over kind of quickly, it's available here for you to spend a little bit more time on.
Yes, we'll share that one more time. All right. So student initiatives, we are here going to talk about some specific initiatives that we took during our doctoral education or studies to improve our writing productivity. So we thought that these might be helpful for graduate students as well as faculty. So our initiatives were prompted by the need for more support, and faculty support initiatives led to more consistent direction. But in the absence of that, we took these several initiatives. And also non-supported initiatives are often based on serendipity, which means that you just discover certain opportunities during your doctoral education, although you're not directed to it. So for example, some of us worked with paid writing consultants to be able to publish, or some used underutilized institutional services such as writing programs on campus, external networking, mentoring programs. Some of us attended those offered by different organizations in the nation, and peer support groups, and also developing regular writing habits. So these are some of the personal initiatives we took to overcome certain challenges and also develop our writing productivity.
So these timescapes here were developed to show the authors of our collaborative research doctoral writing trajectories. And each one of these individual timescapes represents one of the three themes that we've been reviewing. So there are just a few things that I'd like to point out as far as what we're seeing on these timescapes. First, they reflect longitudinal qualitative experiences across each of the three themes. So you can see that those are the writing trajectories across 5 years. And I would like to especially point out the link between writing productivity and faculty support. So particularly if you look at the kind of purplish top one there for faculty-student relationships, you can see that author number 4 had a very early, strong faculty support as illustrated by the darker color. And then if you look at student initiatives for publications, that is also aligned with the faculty support. And you can't necessarily just say, oh, that those two were related to each other, but in the actual data collection, they were for that author. And then you can also see, interestingly, in theme number 3 for peer support, you can see when this group started, where the color all of a sudden gets really darker or very dark for some of the participants all the way through to the end. And so you can just see the how being part of the peer support group contributed consistently to the mentoring that we were receiving as far as the doctoral writing. So this slide emphasizes some key affordances of participating in a peer mentoring group. Just really quickly again, and some of this will be overlap, but it provides the opportunity to discuss and refine ideas. We also have a WhatsApp chat, and periodically, like there was a project I was working on recently where I said, what do you all think? And everybody was gracious enough to chime in and say, well, this is my experience and you might want to do this, or this is something that you might want to think about, which is just tremendously helpful. Feedback and audience all the time. It gives the opportunity to explore scholarly writing and publication, dedicated time for discussion and exploration. In this research, we talked a lot about serendipity, how you just happen to be in this place, or you just happen to talk about this person, and you just happen to find something out. Well, participating in a group like this gives you the opportunity to have dedicated time for discussion and exploration, as opposed to relying on serendipity to find out things that are really good to know. And that speaks to number 5, sharing tips and opportunities, sharing conference and paper calls, and then having the collaborative writing opportunities. What's required for peer mentoring within a peer mentoring group like we have been describing? We talked about if we wanted to add any more items, any more bullet points. There's one bullet point here. Did we want to add any more? And we decided no, because what really we have found that is required for a successful peer mentoring group, like the one that we've participated in, is the commitment to attend, to carve out that time so that you have the dedicated time, you have the dedicated space, and then to participate. So to come with ideas, come with questions, goals, resources, collaborative ideas. So that is really what we have found to be the key element. We have all of these affordances, all of these benefits of participation, but what's required is basically that you commit to do it.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I think that's very important. Although I should say that, doctoral writers might explore or realize the role of peer mentoring at different phases of their doctoral education. But we accomplish this commitment through meeting throughout the year, winter, summer, and other terms, biweekly. So in the interest of time, I am just going to quickly review for questions at the end. We want to leave time for that. So some do's and don'ts. You imagine the opposite of these for don'ts. So we didn't really want to reiterate the same idea. So discuss your scholarly interests openly with your advisors and colleagues, and call for proposals for chapters or journal special issues. You might find them in social media because a lot of time that's where it's posted. So be in those groups. Attend relevant webinars and free events those could be related to grant writing or others, or writing. And then ask for written feedback from your advisors and peers, whoever you can find, or campus resources. And also ask about, especially like, how do you build in a research agenda and how do you start publishing? So that's like the hidden aspect of this, of academia. So you want to think about that. And also make expectations clear between program and student. I mean, this could be for programs, faculty, and for students, just having clear expectations. Finally, I would like to share that these publication types to consider for yourself, and there might be some other ones. Book reviews, great for start, and later as well. There are newsletters, magazines, and conference proceedings, etc. So consider these and other opportunities. These are the resources that we would like to share with you. The first couple are some handbooks, and I would like to mention especially the third one, which is the mentoring program that I personally attended for 2 years, and that impacted my doctoral experience substantially. This is open to anyone who would like to apply, and there is a good diverse group of scholars from the US and also internationally, and there's an international representation there. This is a free book that's been recently published by Kessler and TESOL, so consider reading that. And also, I would like to emphasize NCFDD, National Center, that has fantastic resources to look at. I gave a link to their 10 free webinars. I think those are a must to understand issues related to doctoral education and how to prepare for academia, especially if you are considering that. So these are our references. Thank you so much for being here, and we are happy to discuss questions. So thank you.
Yeah, so now the floor is open for questions, Q&A session. As I have already put in the chat, if you have any questions, just write them in the chat or ask questions directly to the speakers.
Lizzie, please go ahead if you'd like to unmute. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for this amazing presentation. I had a question about these peer mentoring groups because I have participated in a writing group with my peers before, but it quickly turned into just like an hour of gossip chatting time every week. And so I was wondering if you had any tips or ideas about how to avoid that.
Yeah, great. Sarah, please chime in at any time, but I would say have a dedicated agenda, and ours was again sharing our life experiences, any projects going on, any progress in our scholarly writing, and that's the first thing. And we write it in a Google Doc, and then everyone comments on that, so that we stick to that agenda, and then we discuss doctoral experiences. Progress in dissertation, and then we share resources. So that really takes up our time, just 1 hour time block. So I would say have an agenda.
Yeah, I would, that was my main thing that I was going to say as well, is to have an agenda and then have kind of an amount of time that you anticipate that you would spend talking about each thing. I think we usually spend about 10 minutes on what's going on with everybody. And then sometimes if there has been if there's been like, if people are working on a conference call or something that they want people to go over that's maybe a shorter piece of writing, sometimes we've dedicated maybe the last half of the meeting to actually go over and give over somebody's work and give feedback during that time, so that we have the dedicated time. Otherwise, sometimes we just send stuff out for feedback.
That's a great question.
Hi, thanks Ali and Sarah for this wonderful presentation. I have a question for you. How did you maintain motivation? Because I feel like I'm working on a project and then there's another call that comes out, or my advisor wants me to do something else. And, it feels like we're juggling so many things. So how did you maintain motivation to be able to, finish projects that you begun, and then, just seeing those projects through, finishing them and publishing them?
Well, you mentioned your supervisor or advisor. So, I mean, I don't know if that's related to your work, like as part of being a graduate school, but I think as a graduate student or as a faculty as well, I mean, it's important to have some passion in certain work that you like to do. And what I realized is that, and this is what I heard from well-established scholars too, that usually one project ends and another starts. It's an ongoing cycle. Sometimes simultaneously you work on those. And one thing that really helps me is just to be principled about my time. I definitely block times on my calendar on a Sunday for the following week, and then I follow it. And if there is anything that comes up that's not critically important, I just reject that and I schedule it for another time. But for writing especially, it's important to have that motivation. And I think it takes a lot of reflection. I mean, gradually you'll build your interest in publishing about certain topics. So that's what you motivates really, being productive, and then also sharing what you do. I think sharing is part of the process that motivates you overall, seeing the support around you. I don't know if this helps, but Sarah, if you would like to add, or anyone else in the group, please feel free to chime in your ideas.
The only other thing I would add is, there's always different circumstances when we take on a project, but I have found that collaborative projects really help with accountability. So.
Ali, Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have just a comment to make. This has all been very interesting. I am not a doctoral candidate, but I am involved with writing, and what caught my attention was conference proposals. I've spent 60 years in the classroom. I'm now retired, and now I'm sharing some things with colleagues in this area of teaching Spanish and also English as a second language. With respect to the proposals, you have to be very concise with the title, usually about 10 words. Capture the interest, of course, of somebody who might want to attend your presentation. And then you've got about 50 words, about 50 words maybe for the abstract. Once again, that has to be so concise. And then you've got maybe 150 words, 200 to describe for the reviewers. And again, how can you put everything that's important into those 150, 200 words? You also have to have something you want to talk about. And so I'm sharing experiences as opposed to doing advanced academic work and research, but I'm sharing experiences which I have had in the classroom, and it's been very interesting. Matter of fact, I have a presentation proposal for the TESOL conference in Long Beach next year, and also one for the Arizona TESOL conference in Flagstaff coming up in a few months. So
Yes.
I have my own challenges there, and conciseness, and that was the comment I wanted to add.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I have worked, and I've been working all the time on that, all the time. Yes, proposals in writing, conciseness, explicitness enough, right? That's part of writing. It's very different from conversation. So as a register, right? So that's what I have worked on during my doctoral studies, with the writing centers, absolutely. And those proposals, when you get accepted, it can be a breathtakingly exciting news, especially if you haven't been to a major conference like TESOL or AERA or AAAL or others. So absolutely, yeah, I think you are doing a great work. And I think that's important mentoring. Great.
Glenn, I would like to add. So we are also planning to organize a workshop on writing proposals for TESOL members in July. So the date has not been fixed yet, but then we are thinking about it. So if you'd like to join, you can join.
Okay, I'll be looking forward to receiving information. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
we missed, it looks like we have a few more minutes, and I think we missed some of the participants here in our first poll. So if you are a graduate student or if you're a faculty, please let us know. And if you have any comments or questions, please tell us about, your mentoring experience, how you have provided different examples, best practices, or if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself. And I can see Judy here. Judy, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. I was so interested in this because I'm working at the Grad Center with the Graduate Writing Lab, and we've been talking a lot about mentorship roles with graduate students and faculty and how to manage those relationships. So it was really great to hear both yours and Sarah's perspectives on this. So it's giving us a lot more to think about. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah and I both graduated from the same university, like Judy, the University of Arizona. So we utilized those centers extensively. So if you definitely consider that. Isabel, were you raising your hand? Please go
Yes.
ahead.
Can you guys hear me a little? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank you all for giving us the presentation today because I have been an Arizona native and student since 1994. I did go to the University of Arizona for 2.5 years, graduated from NAU with my bachelor's degree in elementary K-8 special ed K-12 with a bilingual endorsement back in 2000. And I do have a master's degree from ASU in educational leadership. I did go to Las Vegas, New Mexico, and worked on my master's program in curriculum instruction and emphasis in reading. So this is now going to be my 29th year in the field of education. I did start a doctoral program at Grand Canyon University a few years back, but I'm basically at MA 75 with 4 years before I retired from the state of Arizona. So I do have many questions and research opportunities that I've come across over the past 29 years. And I have to make that decision to say, yes, I'm going to finish my dissertation that I've written many, many times, but haven't published or done anything like that to implement what my research has been over the past 29 years in the field of education. So I appreciate very much all of your feedback and all of your resources that you all have provided because it gives me that motivation and that push to say, yes, I will become Dr. Galindo Doyle if I put my mind to it and say, okay, this is going to be my trajectory. This is what I would like to do. This is what I have in my backyard in Arizona. So I thank you all for providing those opportunities for all of us to be able to continue dual language instruction. For example, I'm going to be, again, next year, a second grade dual language teacher. So I have had many different experiences in the field of education. So I have to kind of hone in on what I really want to do when I grow up.
That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I think I'm fully confident that you can accomplish it because I have seen in many colleagues. And I should say that we are just, this is even like scratching the surface, like as we talk. I hope that you can read about our narratives because Sarah, I, and 2 other colleagues shared those in our recently accepted paper. In the references, you can find that. If you don't have access to the PowerPoint, we can share the link again. Again, I think it's important to just be aware of individual experiences. So if you have any specific questions, please feel free to ask. But each of these topics can take a lot more time to talk about. And we are happy to share because you may or may not necessarily find someone who shares openly with you about the hidden curriculum, issues related to doctoral education, how to succeed, how to publish. So these are important milestones.
¿Y qué
Yeah,
opinaron los maestros de inglés del curso?
thank you everyone for joining.
Pues ahí estaban ellas hablando, ni quieres que les pelee mucho porque
So thank you everyone for joining us. Now join me in thanking Dr. Ali El-Ali and Dr. Sarah Roberts for delivering such an informative webinar session on mentoring graduate student writers in the dissertation and publication processes. So if you have joined this, or if this is your first time joining TESOL, please keep an eye on the upcoming webinars in July and August and September. So every month we are planning for one, at least one webinar monthly. So that's our plan, and we have been successful in that, except some months in the past. So please keep an eye on that. Join TESOL for free. We don't charge any membership fees. So if you are not a member, so please join us, and then you will get regular emails from us. Would you like to add, speakers, would you like to add the few
Well,
last minute
Madhu,
remarks?
we would like to thank TESOL for organizing this. I'm the past president. It's been a fantastic team, I should say. If you're interested in joining, Madhu mentioned about that. And Flagstaff, Glenn mentioned the research, the conference. So we would like to, again, for this opportunity to share our experiences. You can reach out to us at any time. Our contact information is in the slides.
Yeah,
And I'll just tack on a thank you. Thanks to everybody for being here.
I'm also putting a link for the upcoming TESOL conference in Flagstaff.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, the speakers and the attendees from TESOL. Thank you all. And then I would like to add, so this will be uploaded on our TESOL channel, YouTube channel. So if you would like to refer back and then watch it again, and how you look like on the screen, or the question that you have asked, or the speakers and speaking on the presentation. So feel free to do that. Thank you. Bye, Ali. Bye,
Bye,
Sarah.
Madhu. Bye.
Bye, Glenn.
Hasta luego. Goodbye.
Okay.